The highly anticipated EA FC 25 has had its release date leaked, and that is September 27th, and even saying that I have trouble being serious. But anyway, the real reason why I bring it up is it's a very interesting Ultimate Edition, which will apparently include 7 days early access as long as you spend $100 on this specific version, which definitely feels like greedy publishers like Electronic Arts extending early access periods while increasing the cost at the same time. You would think or maybe hope that they'd be a little less greedy since they have a new cash cow releasing in the coming days, but I suppose that is just silly wishful thinking. Celebrating the founding of the original Telltale Games founding, new images from The Wolf Among Us 2 were released. This is a game I've been waiting years for, and it's just nice to know a release does appear to be on the horizon. God of War creator David Jaffe recently spoke on the failure of Ragnarok to make Atreus a character that can stand on its own. While praising Cory Barlog's God of War 2018, he said about the sequel, "I think that Atreus is a terrible character, at a visual level and a play level. I like his function as a son for Kratos, but that guy needed to be set up by the end of Ragnarok or the middle for Ragnarok to be like, fuck, that dude is cool, I want to be that guy, and Ragnarok didn't give us that." Personally myself, I thought Ragnarok was just fine. It had its moments, but it definitely was nowhere near the quality of the 2018 installment, and that likely is because Sony Santa Monica rushed the end of the Norse chapter, and Cory Barlog just was not as involved with the sequel. Now, with this criticism of Atreus by Jaffe, I actually agree with it, but I still feel like the inevitable spin-off could redeem him and turn this around. Only time will tell. Xbox Game Pass, the best deal in gaming that some have declared over the years, maybe even myself, well, it certainly isn't feeling that way anymore. Microsoft has brought upon yet another massive price increase and introduced new tiers, some of which that don't include day one releases. Game Pass Ultimate goes up $3 a month from $17 to $20. Game Pass Core, which offers online access and a much smaller library of curated games, is changing its yearly from $60 to $75. The new Xbox Game Pass standard tier for new members, which gives you access to hundreds of games, will be $15 a month and will not include access to day one releases, EA Play, Game Pass for PC, and cloud gaming. As someone who has been subscribed for years, this subscription is starting to feel less and less worth it, especially as we all know prices will only increase in time. I would imagine by 2025, it'll probably be $25 a month. The very much not dead superhero looter shooter live service, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, has announced its newest DLC, which will include a playable Miss Freeze, and the character design definitely is garnering a reaction of fucking boredom. Now, 2 days before this DLC was set to go live, because obviously none of you guys know what he was even going to be releasing, but Rocksteady suddenly delayed it by 2 weeks. The dozens of players left were disappointed. Star Wars Outlaws has done a remarkable job seeming like maybe a dream Star Wars game to, well, now it's probably just a typical meh Ubisoft experience. Some of you indeed warned me, but previews of the game recently reinforced the belief that this likely won't be all that great, and now a new revelation has made clear that this game might be even smaller than expected with its open world. Speaking to IGN, creative director Julian Garrity reiterated the planets Tatooine, a Toshara moon, Akiva, Kojima, and Cantonica will be around the size of 2 or 3 zones in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. When then asked how long it would take protagonist Kay Vess to ride from one end of Toshara to the other side on her speeder, Garrity said about 4 or 5 minutes, which will seemingly apply to Akiva and Tatooine too, since they're around the same size. This isn't necessarily an issue as quality over quantity, obviously, but the open world has appeared to have a lot of empty areas based on the gameplay shown thus far. Ubisoft's creative director did say that this was a deliberate decision, saying, "We don't want things to be just big for a big sake. We need it to be contained, always fun, always proposing different activities, so the traversal, the whole thing had to feel like a journey, a commitment when you get on your speeder and you want it to go from one end to the next." Which is great to hear, a great explanation, but I've been burned on so many of these Ubisoft games over the years that I think it's really best to go back to my typical stance with this company, and that's remaining skeptical. In other Ubisoft news, they announced dozens were being fired from their Toronto studio that is currently working on the Prince of Persia remake, the one that was announced a couple of weeks back at the Ubisoft Forward event. The reasoning, though, is a bit bizarre. As Ubisoft said in a statement, Ubisoft Toronto has decided to conduct a targeted realignment to ensure it can deliver on its ambitious roadmap, which, I don't know, downsizing your staff seems to be the opposite of that. In one of my recent videos, we spoke about Ubisoft facing outrage over the potential theft of unauthorized use of a historical reenactment group's flag in Assassin's Creed Shadows concept art, and now that has been confirmed by Ubisoft, which apologized in a statement on Twitter. The art in question will not be used or distributed any further beyond beyond this date, except for being included in the art book in the collector's edition. We deeply apologize for this matter. The reenactment group previously was discussing legal action against Ubisoft, and thus far they don't appear to be happy with this apology, as Ubisoft is still pushing forward with its inclusion in the game's $279 collector's edition, which if I had to guess, it's probably already been printed, thus why it's still being included. But Assassin's Creed Shadows, the controversy surrounding it has not slowed down, so much so that we have actually seen a change.org petition go viral. This is in Japanese. A lot of Japanese individuals have signed it, also many Americans as well. So the controversy, some people saying this is just an American thing, making it out to be bigger than what it actually is, but you definitely do have some people in Japan that are upset about this. So much so that we have actually seen that a Japanese politician has finally chimed in and called for maybe a potential investigation into Ubisoft and Shadows, which is just crazy upgrade in terms of the controversy surrounding it. This article coming from 80 Level. Assassin's Creed Shadow keeps collecting hate from people, so much so that the outraged cries reached Satoshi Hamada, a Japanese politician who decided to investigate the game over cultural appropriation. He wants to bring the issue up in front of the National Diet, a legislative body in Japan. On July 11th, Hamada retweeted a post from a fellow Japanese ex-user summarizing the various issues local players have with AC Shadow's presentation, such as how some of its buildings feature Chinese instead of Japanese architecture, or how a lowly servant can be seen sitting on the same level as Oda Nobunaga himself. Alongside this retweet, the politician made a request for opinions to the general public. We have received a consultation regarding the alteration of Japanese history by a French game company. We share the consultation below with images. We have also quoted a post that we believe points out the problem with the game in question. We would be happy to receive your comments and suggestions, including specific requests, in which many individuals did. Further, Hamada shared a list of related concerns that had already been brought to the attention, such as, the possibility that Yasuke's prominence in the game's plot could lead to the misconception that he had a bigger role in Japanese history than he actually did. It continues that less than 24 hours later, after this plea, Hamada shared an update saying, "We received a consultation from another person about cultural theft and cultural invasion regarding Yasuke, a black man who served Nobunaga Oda." And at the moment, that is where this situation stands, as this Japanese politician has an ongoing investigation into AC Shadows and its authenticity to Japanese history. And right now it does appear that this politician may be angling to have this brought forward to Japan's legislative body, but it is unclear what can or what will be done. But it is very clear that this is definitely one of the biggest, most controversial games in the last couple of years. Very few people would play a Morrowind-style RPG. These are remarks coming from the director of The Elder Scrolls Online. In an interview with Rock Paper Shotgun, the director said that games that have no compass, no map, where literally the quests are like go to the third tree on the right and walk 50 paces west, just won't reach a modern audience, Fryer explains. If you did that now, no one would play it. Very few people would play it, so now you need to give them hints and clues, and nobody wants to really devote that much time to a problem solving. Like, they want to go and be told a story, interact with another player, or interact with an NPC. This is an interesting position because I feel that way about the AAA games industry, as the open world kind of has stagnated into, well, you know what an open world game is going to have. Although there are some rule breakers to that. I looked at Elden Ring as a great example of that, and there are a number of indie games that break that. But in terms of the modern AAA games industry, you kind of know what you're going to be getting out of the open world genre, and no, it's nothing like Morrowind all those years ago. After the massive success story of Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of us are looking forward to seeing what Larian Studios has prepared for the future, and it does appear that it's probably going to be a new IP, but Larian CEO Sven Vink recently opened up about if they hadn't worked on Baldur's Gate, what were some of the other franchises, the big popular franchises that they wanted to work on. And one of the specific names caught a lot of people's eyes, and that is Fallout. An article coming from PC Gamer: the Divinity games are great and they carry a lot of weight among dedicated RPG fans, but they don't have the brand recognition of Baldur's Gate and more broadly Dungeons & Dragons. Vink felt that snagging the rights to work on an established property like that would work for Larian on a couple levels. It would be great for attracting other people to the studio, he said, and it would also hopefully elevate Larian into the big leagues, and that's exactly what happened with them working on Baldur's Gate 3. Now, the Larian boss continued saying it would have been Ultima, it would have been Fallout, it would have been Baldur's Gate. There was not a lot to choose from. Baldur's Gate was apparently Larian's first choice. Now, it's unclear, it definitely is doubtful that any conversation surrounding Fallout happened, but it would have been interesting to see a Larian Fallout game, especially after we've seen all the work that they did to Baldur's Gate. Imagine that with the Fallout IP. It's something that a lot of us dream for, and it's something right now I would absolutely love to see. I don't think it would be in the realm of what we've seen from Bethesda. It would be more like the older Interplay Fallout games, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy that. Now, I don't know if Bethesda would even want that. There's a couple of reasons why. One is because I think Bethesda and Xbox wants to keep this in-house now. Like, if there was a third party to work on the Fallout franchise, it's much more likely it's going to be In Exile Entertainment or Obsidian Entertainment over an independent studio like Larian. Now, number two is a very obvious one. These 3D Fallout games reach a much more mainstream audience, and I think right now, where Xbox stands, I think that that's what they would want a Fallout spinoff to reach to. So it's an interesting idea to think about a Fallout Larian game. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. But hey, if Todd Howard wanted it to really happen, I think he could make it happen. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. CD Projekt Red is preparing for the future of Cyberpunk. That is Cyberpunk 20. Who knows what direction they're going to be taking with a sequel. All we know is that they have an American studio working on this that was recently formed, and it appears they have some new talent coming in, such as a Wolverine narrative lead joining the team to work on this sequel, and there has been some controversy in regards to this individual because of the fact that this specific writer spoke out about the Sweet Baby situation a couple of months back. They defended the company with a couple of rather head-scratching remarks. This is something we talked about extensively at the time all the way back then. That's why many are concerned about the quality of this game. Now, we have seen CD Projekt Red speaking a little bit about the direction that they hope to take with this Cyberpunk sequel. CDPR says it, and this is an article coming from VGC, that its new Boston studio means Cyberpunk 2 will be more authentically American. Now, what does that specifically mean? Well, the acting executive producer Dan Hernberg said it was appropriate to have the sequel be developed in North America. I think Cyberpunk is obviously a uniquely American story. It's got a lot of like punk energy, and it was written by an American, so it just seems right to do it in America. Associate game director Paweł Sasko, he recently moved from Poland to this new Boston studio. He gave an example of one situation in which Cyberpunk 2077 didn't feel American enough. According to Sasko, the first game's manhole covers looked more like those used in parts of Europe instead of the US where the game was set. He also later spoke about some of the social issues that he felt like they didn't do enough to tackle, such as the homeless crisis that currently is happening in, California. He hopes to incorporate that in a sequel. And this might be a controversial, unpopular opinion, but I really did care and enjoy the narrative of Cyberpunk 2077. Obviously, there are issues with the life paths and some of the other content, but I definitely like the direction that they took with kind of everything, all of the messaging, everything that they hit on. So that's why them taking this now with an American direction, American team, I don't know how I feel about that. I also don't really know how to feel about this new studio, especially because it's not going to be that CDPR Poland office. They're right now concentrating on The Witcher 4. Now, it is worth mentioning that there has been some other recent news, such as another lead developer, Quest designer, saying that Phantom Liberty couldn't have been as good if the initial reception of the game wasn't as negative, which, yeah, obviously, they put a lot more heart and effort and time into Phantom Liberty, but as was recently revealed, there was a Moon DLC that was in development that was canceled. We probably would have got that if there wasn't so much controversy and if the launch had gone a lot better. Now, there's also been some controversy in regards to the themes of Cyberpunk 2077. CDPR has been criticized heavily about this over the years. One of the big criticisms is the fact that the game incorporates a cop element, that we kind of act like a cop within Night City, and we saw one of the lead developers on Cyberpunk 2077 calling out an article that discussed this. Patrick K. Mills saying, waiting for someone who writes one of these to demonstrate even the barest understanding of the genre themselves. I mean, it's great that people are still talking about the game, but damn, like, it would be one thing if someone knew a lot about Cyberpunk, had opinions, and took us to task, but it never is. I'm not the king of Cyberpunk. I'd love to hear informed opinions about 2077 fits into the canon, but instead it's always flippant and superficial shit like you help the cops. What was the Major's job again? Remind me. Cyberpunk in the heads of some people is all about criticizing capitalism, about fighting winning the fight against the corporations, marginalized people rising up. Real Cyberpunk is a lot more complex and contains multitudes. There's a huge reactionary impulse and a lot of classics, which I think this is a great takedown of a lot of the criticism that we've seen over the years about Cyberpunk 2077, and the criticism some thrown at CDPR about them just not understanding the genre, when I think 2077 did a fantastic job at it, in my opinion. The future of Rockstar games is something that a lot of people think about. Is it a new IP? Is it a medieval game? Is it going back to some other classic franchises such as Bully, LA Noire? Is it another sequel to Red Dead Redemption? Who knows? Obviously, Grand Theft Auto 6 is the immediate attention. That'll be coming out maybe next year, probably 2026 based on what I've heard. But we did see an interesting article coming from VGC, a company that has been working with Rockstar Games Video Deluxe. A lot of people noticed that they were working, or reportedly working, on a new 1940s game, which caught a lot of attention, but unfortunately it looks like this was just music that they were working for on an old project, and now they are apparently exclusively working for Rockstar Games. Does this mean there's maybe some new remasters, some new remakes on the way coming from Video Games Deluxe, which recently worked, I believe, on the Red Dead port? Who knows, but it's very interesting to think about what is next for Rockstar Games beyond the Max Payne remakes coming from Remedy Entertainment and obviously Grand Theft Auto 6. There's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great paths that they could take forward. It's just the question of what will they or what can they do. But Rockstar Games has been in the news for some other revelations, some of them kind of unflattering, and that involves some of the business decisions that they made with Grand Theft Auto 5, which was originally going to have story DLC. This is an article coming from VGC. GTA 5 story DLC was scrapped because GTA Online was a cash cow, cinematics editor claims, which is the least surprising news that any of us could have gotten. This is something that we all kind of already knew, but it's nice to at least have some confirmation. Joseph Rubino, who is a senior camera artist and virtual cinematographer at Rockstar for 6 years, told the San and Play YouTube channel that he worked on the Trevor DLC before it was canceled. That was kind of my thing. I was one of the main editors, camera artist, and doing a lot of the second unit on stage stuff. Explaining why the DLC was canceled, Rubino claimed that the initial financial success of GTA Online made Rockstar change its priorities and focus more on that. What happened was when GTA Online came out, it was so much of a cash cow and people were loving it so much that it was hard to make an argument that a standalone DLC would outcompete that. And that's true. They had billions of dollars coming in. They didn't really have to invest the resources, the time that you would have to into a story DLC. So why not just grab all of the resources, everything that they made in that, and just put it to GTA Online? And that's pretty much what happened. Rubino said the decision to cancel the DLC made him a little upset, adding that was a lot of reason for me being a little sour at the time, because I was like, yo, what the fuck, guys? This shit's awesome. Let's keep going. Let's finish this. Now, Rubino's story is similar to that of Trevor actor Stephen Ogg, who discussed the story DLC's cancellation during an interview held in April, in which he said that Trevor was going to be an undercover. He was working with the feds. We did shoot some of that stuff with James Bond Trevor, where he's still kind of a F up, but he's doing his best, which I think would have been an interesting direction for the character, something that a lot of us were eagerly awaiting back in like 2014, 2015, but it's never going to happen. Now, it is worth mentioning the question about story DLC with Rockstar Games. I personally feel like we're never going to see it at all again. This was about 6 or so years ago when story DLC, Game Informer asked Rockstar Games directly about this, the fact that they've made, great single-player expansions such as Liberty City, the episodes from Liberty City, and Undead Nightmare, and they talked about GTA Online kind of maybe taking that over in terms of, narrative content after release. Rockstar said, we would love to do a more single-player add-ons for games in the future. As a company, we love single-player more than anything and believe in it absolutely. For storytelling and a sense of immersion in a world, multiplayer games don't rival single-player games, although I definitely don't feel like that's going to be the case with Grand Theft Auto 6. With their expansive plans that they have for GTA 6 Online, I think we're going to see, if there is any narrative content, it's just going to come in the form of that component. So single player story DLC, I just feel like at this point it is dead at Rockstar Games. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is arguably probably the biggest release of 2024. I think that's safe to say. And there has been some controversy in regards to its difficulty, so much so that we had the Helldivers 2 director chiming in about this. Johan Pilidest, he responded to someone and X, Twitter, who complained about the intense difficulty of Shadow of the Erdtree, which is something that's been notable with, all From Software DLCs over the years. But I mean, Elden Ring reached a much wider audience than any past From Software games, so I think a lot of that audience just wasn't necessarily prepared or really knew this reputation of From Software. Napoleodest initially shared another post saying From Software doesn't make bosses hard for the sake of it, but for the feeling of overcoming them gives players indeed this 1000%. Good game design is evoking emotion more than anything. And someone responded saying, the problem with the design philosophy is that it only caters to a select audience. I tried DS1 after defeating the first couple bosses. I realized it wasn't fun or rewarding. I only felt relief, not accomplished. I stopped playing DS because of this, and he said, a game for everyone is a game for no one. Always cater to a select audience. Now, speaking of Helldivers, this is a live service that has garnered a lot of reactions as of late because of how quickly the game has fallen in terms of its player base. As this Forbes article pointed out a number of weeks ago, after initial success, Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its players with no signs of recovery. And that was a couple weeks ago. Now it stands at about 27,000 players, and this has been garnering a lot of reactions about why is this game collapsing, and can you consider this a live service failure? And ultimately, going from about 500,000 players daily at launch to around 25,000, that's not great. But it doesn't spell game over for Helldivers 2. But it is worth mentioning some people have said that the PSN requirement may be the reason why this game just completely fell apart, but it doesn't appear so. This has been a steady decline, and there are multiple reasons why, but specifically if you look at the data, if you look at the problems of the game, many have pointed out that a lack of planet variety, too many gun nerfs, and a lack of new mission types are probably the overall reason. And as one user summarized from their experience, games always have a decline in player base over time, but I've done it all in Helldivers. I played and we collectively beat back the automatons and the bugs. The reward? Nah, not really, and the game has only continued on, and until there's a massive expansion, new content, something that really changed the landscape of Helldivers 2, it's only going to continue to bleed the player base. And I think you can look at Palworld as a great example of this. This game around May, June had around 22,000 players left, and then recently they just released a massive new update expansion with a bunch of new content. The game is sitting around, 24-hour peak of 100,000 players. That's pretty darn good. And that probably is the resurgence that I'm sure Helldivers 2 will experience in the coming weeks and months whenever a massive new update or expansion comes about. But until then, it's just going to continue to bleed. Blizzard in recent years is one of the few top publishers that just knows how to anger their audience in predictable ways. I guess that's the best way to describe it, as they move controversy to controversy. WoW Classic Changes has now started a fan petition with many upset at them. Article coming from WoW Vendor, the arrival of patch 1.15.3 introduced several updates to WoW Classic Era, including Warchief's Blessing for the Alliance, an updated guild interface, and druids now being able to train polearms. Some players are intrigued by these changes, others feel Blizzard is deviating from their promise, Blizzard with their promises, to keep characters on the new Classic Era realms just as it was. Waves and waves of criticism have been surging across the internet. This results in a petition demanding that developers halt changes to vanilla WoW. And if you actually look to the petition right now, it has around 3,000 signatures, and many pointing out again the promise that Blizzard made to gamers. Some of the top comments include, I remember when this was supposed to serve as a time capsule, the changes implemented were not wanted, asking for or even communicated to the player base, leave Classic Era alone. I want my vanilla WoW back. I came back in 2019 for the game I left in 2007. Blizzard is so out of touch with the Classic players, they need to get a grip and let Classic be Classic. But this is Blizzard, the new Blizzard, and that will never change about them. Not necessarily listening to players is just kind of what we've become accustomed to with this company. Electronic Arts and Respawn Entertainment a number of years ago now surprise released Apex Legends, a fresh battle royale experience which blew up at the time, and it has been one of the most successful multiplayer live services the last couple of years, and now EA has found a way to double down on its monetization because it's just the obvious path forward with all of these live services, milking their audience as much as they can. Eurogamer has the story Apex Legends is evolving its battle pass by splitting it in two and charging players twice to make it more obtainable and valuable for your time and money. I love when these companies are greedy. They always try to make the excuse that they're giving players more value at the same time as they're doubling their profits. I love that. I love the excuses that they try to come up with, especially Electronic Arts. We'll always remember their Star Wars Battlefront 2 slogan to give you a sense of pride and accomplishment. Very much it feels like that's what they're saying here with Apex Legends and the changes that they are making. But as outlined by Eurogamer, upcoming Season 22 will make significant changes to the free-to-play shooters Battle Pass experience by releasing 2 Battle Passes per season instead of 1, and then charging full price for each. As of Season 22, Apex Legends is ditching its current season-long Battle Pass in favor of 2 half-season Battle Passes, one launching at the start of a season and another at its midpoint, split, each featuring 60 levels of rewards compared to the previous being 110. Previously, a premium Battle Pass cost 950 Apex coins, which a 1,000 coin bundle is priced at about $10, and Respawn's new half-season Battle Passes are $10 each. And it's notable that Respawn's overall Battle Pass will no longer be purchasable using Apex coins. Previously, coins earned in one Battle Pass could be spent on the next. You remember when Fortnite introduced its amazing Battle Pass system, and then all the developers kind of copy and paste it in their games? And we've only seen over time all of these different publishers, actually specifically Activision Blizzard has been a great example of this, sliming it on up, and Electronic Arts, here they are doing it again. It's also the only available in exchange for real money. The decision to move from premium currency is not one that we made lightly, the studio writes in its announcement post, but it does allow us to decrease the price of Premium Plus for our community. They go on to say, they insist that the Battle Pass changes are required to make the system more approachable and realistic for our global player community, and that the updated aspects make the Battle Pass more attainable and valuable for your time and money. Respawn using the value, sense of pride and accomplishment excuse. I love it. I love the BS, how obvious it is. And obviously the community is absolutely livid with these changes. Their response to Respawn's Battle Pass changes has been far from positive, with comments over on the Apex Legends subreddit calling the move everything from an abysmal decision and a truly embarrassing money grab to the worst effing shit I've ever seen. The Battle Pass changes finally did it. I uninstalled. This one has 3,000 upvotes, another one with about 1,500 upvotes. All right, guys, I'm out. And many have pointed out that even EA got community noted because the community points out that the reason why they're making these changes is straight up greed. That's it. While Respawn claims the changes is made through community feedback, it is obvious that this change is only profitable for EA shareholders. Consumers are forced to spend IRL currency instead of in-game Apex coins, a convenient change to make them more and more money. And as you might expect, on Steam right now, the game is being met with mostly negative reviews, 20% only positive. Oh, and scratch that. Updating the page now, it's 19% that are positive, and it has moved it from mostly to overwhelmingly negative. What these companies deserve. They were deserved for their games to be review bombed like this, because this is the only way to speak to these publishers in their greed. And unfortunately, with a live service like this, I doubt Electronic Arts is at all going to listen. And the only way that you can speak to this company is by not playing and not spending at all on Apex Legends. This is indeed the state of the AAA games industry, and why I find it so frustrating with so many normalization of stuff like this, because in my mind, none of this is okay, and it continues to happen. Anyway, a lot going on in the video game industry, a lot of smaller stories right now, but I'm sure definitely things are going to be picking up, especially with Gamescom coming right around the corner, and then obviously some of the major releases in the fall. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all the stories that we discussed today down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.